Welcome everybody to the first installment of Building an Off-Grid Passive Solar House Solo Style. In this episode I am working on the first floor south facing wall. The first thing I needed to do was to clear the southern half of the first floor so I'd have space to build the wall that I was getting ready to put up. Next I went and grabbed some 2x6s because I'd ran out. And once I got those up on the deck, I decided I probably ought to get rid of that snow that had accumulated from underneath where I had stacked my lumber up on some 2x4s and gotten in under there. So got that all cleared off, and then as I was pulling off the 2x6s off the stack, I cut them down to the 9 foot ceiling height. They're 104 5/8, and the nice thing about that is I get out of a 10-foot stud, I get my 9-foot wall, and I have enough left over for bracing between the studs. Then it's time for me to secure the base plate on the chalk line with a few proud toenails. This kept it in place while I was working, but also acted as a hinge when raising the wall. Leaving them proud just makes it easier to remove them after the lift. Learned that trick from the Perkins Builder Brothers. Thanks, guys. Also went back with the little speed square and extended my layout down the inside of the top and bottom plate. This was simply for my benefit to get the studs in straight and work on calibrating my eye. It's amazing when I first started out how often I would doubt myself in the perpendicular alignment of the stud to the plate. Taking the time to mark didn't cost that much time, but purchased a whole lot of peace of mind. So then the first order of business is I went through placing the full-length studs in place first, including the double kings were required, and also around the doors just to give it some extra space. Man, it sure was windy that day. Take a look at the trees going. Oh my goodness. So I learned something here that I should have done the openings first and put the headers in and framed the openings and then put all the studs in, because it's easier to frame it that way. But I learned my lesson on this wall, and I'm gradually getting there. I figure by the time I get to my last wall, I'll have it just, down to a science. So there is just finishing up that end of the wall again with the studs. As far as the headers are concerned, I'm going to start working on those here. I decided to make it easy on myself on the exterior and just use 2x10s. This way I can butt the header up against the top plate, and then my window goes down and stays just high enough so that I don't need to have it be safety glass, which is really wonderful. It's not that expensive, but it's nice to save a little bit of money. In here, I thought I had a couple of these wrong, so I fixed them. Turned out only one of the 3 was wrong, so I fixed 2 that were already right, so I had to go back and fix those again. Pull my diagonals so I could tack it down and start putting the sheathing on. I'd say I got pretty close there. And nice little snow flurries going through. Yeah, there I go tacking that top plate down. Now, with that tacked top plate, that means that I'm squared up and I can put my sheathing on, and it's not going to goof around on me. So, yeah, there was me fixing. I think that was the second time I was fixing my fix-up. So they were right the first time, and then I had to fix them. Look at my supervisors. Okay, there we go. Cutting some headers out. I grabbed the wrong board the first time on those. I'd picked up some 16-footers that were, instead of like 2x10 should be like 9 1/4. These were like 8 3/4. They're just horrible. They're like really bad. Anyway, so I have one set of headers that are slightly about 1/4 inch taller than the rest of them. But I think once I get all the siding and everything, you're not going to be able to tell a difference. I'll know for sure, and now you guys will know for sure. But I think if somebody just shows up, it's not like it's 2 or 3 inches out, so it should be fine. Then I'm just making sure I'm pulling off the same stack of lumber for all my other headers. That way I know that they should all be about the same. one of the things that I've learned is that a lot of things that I might use the chop saw for, if it's only for a couple cuts, I have to start my generator up, and it's just easier grabbing the circular saw, rear handle saw, to do those cuts instead of the chop saw or the miter saw. And, here we go, cutting all the cripples out to put underneath the double sill plate that I have in. And then we're putting in some blocking. The walls are sheer, and the zip for sheer instead of 6-inch on the edge. I have to go every 3 inches on the edge, which means I have to put some, obviously I have the studs to go to vertically, but I need something horizontally to attach to. So putting in some blocking plates in there so I can get my 3 inches on the horizontal. And then time to throw the sheathing up. Just getting it down pretty quick and easy, staying away from doing any fasteners near the openings. The plan was to use my 2-inch flush trim router bit to cut out all those openings like I see Awesome Framers doing, but with an 1.15/16 depth in a 2-inch flush trim router bit, it just didn't. Any kind of deviation or defect in the very top edge of that wood that I was tracing around transferred right to the cut, so it just didn't work. So I quickly gave that up, and then I just went and pulled measurements from the studs at the top to the sides based off of where the sheathing is, and then I just did a real quick mark out. Went and grabbed my what's it called? Shakespeare, what's that thing called? Huh? What's it called? Track saw. So I went and got the track saw and had those marks out and just set the depth to right at 1.15/16, and then I broke the good old sawzall to trim out the corners that I couldn't get quite up in there, because obviously the blade on that track saw is curved and corners are square. So have the good old sawzall to hit that, bam, 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 and worked out just fine. Not quite as quick as just being able to take a router and go near, or however the sound is. But track saw worked really well, and I'm gonna be able to save those pieces. I made a couple of mistakes in my figuring up, so these are going to be great saves for me to have for later on. And then once I got that all done, I guess I didn't show it on here, but I had to go through and nail through all those openings on the edges, 3-inch, every 3 inches all the way around for my shear, and then got to go back and put the tape on it and roll it to cover that up and get that good air, water, moisture barrier going. And yep, it's cool. That little thing that you roll it with has Z's and metal in the middle of it, so they can tell if you rolled it or not with their tool. So yep, just get some pressure down in there, get the Z's going on it, and wash, rinse, repeat. Right, Chiggy? Alright, so the next thing we got going on here, after I get done with this last little bit, is we're going to start standing it up. And I put the 2 jacks, 2x4 wall jacks, a little bit too in this close to the center, and the wings were bending out a little bit too much. So once I got it off the ground just a little bit, and got it off the ground, I shorted up. See, I'm like, uh-oh, that's not good. And this time I go ahead and move those jacks out a little bit to help the wall. My neighbor is going to show up here in a second and help me out, which is sure great. Keeps me from having to do like a pump and a half on one and run to the other one and a pump and a half, or 2 pumps and then back and forth and back and forth. It sure does make it go a lot easier. So got some toenails on the base plate where it's going to hinge up, so hopefully it won't go flying off to the side. And got a couple straps that I have about 2 extra inches of play in there. So then, just in case a good old gust of wind comes up and grabs the top of it and pushes it out, it's not going to just take it on a sailing. And just kind of working our way up, have some pre-staged blocking that and set it in, and just kind of work it a little bit, checking our level and going along. And once we get that going through and excuse me, putting our bracing in. Slightly out of level right now, but when I get my other walls, will be tied in, and that'll work great. So, yep, going through, making sure I got that base plate tacked down in nice and good. And there she is. Southern facing wall, first floor. Thanks for sticking around for me. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, I hope to see you all back again. Until next time, wander on, y'all.